welcome to the Olympian Table this morning. As always, I've got my good friend over here, Mr. James Lee.
Good morning, good morning. How you doing, sir?
How y'all doing?
How y'all doing? Hey, New Jersey accent, I hear
y'all. No, I've got the true Texas accent. You're just trying to intimidate the true Texas accent.
I hear you.
And this morning we have the one and only, we need a drum roll.
Let's give it.
Dawn Killian.
Good morning.
And you just told me, Dawn, that you raised horses?
Well, I married into it, but yes.
Okay, and just so everybody know, we was talking about poop because I've just got some puppies that we're raising, and then I was complaining how much poop I was picking up last night, and Dawn said,
No, at my first job, I was 14 years old, and it was on a horse ranch, and they had 37 horses. Clean stalls every morning.
In Texas?
Here in Texas, yeah.
Wow. Well, y'all are a poop picker-up.
Absolutely.
So anyway, what type of 24 hours have you had, James?
Man, it's actually been a bit of a whirlwind, enjoyable. Just trying to get people into homes. Got a couple deals I'm working on and tying up loose ends, man. That's really what it's all about when you're trying to help these families getting to the largest purchase in their lives. It is very, very important to take that. So they're happy, I'm happy. Just trying to get them in there.
First-time buyers?
First-time buyers, man, yeah. As a matter of fact, this guy's a first-time buyer, and he's working over in Afghanistan. He's a veteran. Thank you for your service, sir. So we have to make sure that we take care of those that take care of us.
Absolutely, and thank you to all them vets that are out there.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your service. Yeah, I had a bit of a rough 24 hours. I had one guy that I know through business, and unfortunately he passed yesterday at 12 o'clock with pancreatic cancer.
Oh, man.
Yeah, tough, and you know, real tough. And it's I want to tell everybody that, you know, if you can donate to your local cancer society or whatever, and you've got a couple of pennies in your pocket, go donate it, because that pancreatic cancer is tough. You know, there's no methods of detecting it, and 5 weeks, and he was in such pain, and he's in a much better place. He really is. You know, real good guy. His name's Larry Pitts. He was president of Townhomes on the Park for the longest time. And I've got to tell you, good guy. We used to have some great, meaningful conversations. Of course, we don't have the same political views, but the truth of the matter is he was a real good guy. You don't have to have the same political views to be friends and be respectful of one another.
Absolutely.
And I used to find him that way. A real good guy, and I appreciate the privilege of even knowing him for the short time that I did. Anyway, so Dawn, tell me what you've been doing for the last week, 2 weeks. First of all, introduce yourself. I guess that's the best way.
Yeah, tell us about Dawn. What's going on?
My name's Dawn Killian. I like long walks. No.
You like long walks and shoveling poop?
I'm Dawn Killian. I'm in the greater Houston area. I don't really specialize in one specific area. I was born and raised here, so I know everything from Lake Livingston, where I have family, all the way down to Galveston, where I have family. So I go wherever my client needs me. I like to drive, so that doesn't bother me one bit.
Absolutely.
I have a fun little car to drive around in.
Little car. It's a gas guzzler. You're an oil supporter.
You're so modest. I am an oil gas supporter because that pays the bills sometimes.
I know. It's in the oil industry.
Yeah. My dad was in the oil industry, and my husband's in the oil industry, so that pays the bills.
When you pull up outside the office, we hear you
Everybody
before
knows
you
I'm
even
home.
walk in the door.
Yeah, no, my husband knows I'm coming home when I'm 3 blocks away. So.
Yeah, you get his messages out the door. There you go. Get out quickly, my wife's coming.
I mean, there's only a few neighbors that don't like it. That
what is it? A Camaro? Black Camaro? Is it?
No, I have a Dodge Charger.
Dodge Charger. Well, is that Hemi thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the big one.
How many miles to the gallon?
On average, total, maybe 18, 19 miles to the gallon.
Oh, that's not bad. That's a regular SUV.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
That's when I get on my truck. I mean, come on, you know.
I mean, as long as I'm nice to her, she gives me 18, 19. If I get a little aggressive, I might get a little less.
Yeah, well, I definitely know you. I'll tell Jasmine, my assistant. Dawn's on her way. Can you hear her in the parking lot? Oh, what made you buy that?
I've always just liked cars, and My husband had a Camaro for a while. I like to drive it, but I didn't like the visibility in it. And then we've had Corvettes. Again, a lot of fun to drive, but in the Houston traffic, when people like to hang out in your blind spots, I just wasn't that comfortable with it. And then he wanted me to have a larger car because, safety.
And
so here I
support his
am
industry.
and support his industry.
There
So
you
here
go.
I am with a 4,000-pound beast. I had a Challenger for a while, but decided I needed a 4-door.
You
So-
like them American supercars. I'd be interested to
do.
see some comments out on there to see what people think of. I mean, I know that I would love some of these cars, but I have not got the pennies for things like that. But I'll tell you that some of these cars, these American cars, they're just absolutely incredible.
Well, you have to remember, Don, this is coming from a guy who what was that car, that Chevy Volt, that electric car you
I
had?
had a
while
Chevy
you-
Volt.
Man.
I was one of the first ones.
He was the only one I knew that had that vehicle.
And I loved it. And when I
Now
was
those
selling
electric
when I
cars
was
are coming up. They're coming up.
They are.
I mean, they don't have that rumble and that, I've got some power underneath me feel.
Right.
But, I mean, they've got stuff like that Mustang Mach-E. I'm not a Mustang girl, but the Mach-E isn't really a Mustang. They just kind of labeled it that. But, I mean, I've watched some videos on it. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Yeah, but what's intriguing about that was the Chevy Volt is something that you can't have if you can't afford a Tesla. And I was literally in that position because when the when the electrics go and you try and save the electric so you don't turn the AC on, then you sweat to death and you're actually driving in a sauna. So it's pretty entertaining. Anyway, so obviously, Dawn, how long? So tell us about yourself. Obviously you're in the real estate industry, and how long have you been in the industry?
I've been in the industry 3 years. I think I'm going into my 4th year now, headed that way.
Why real estate? Don't tell us you want to look at red doors and granite countertops.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, I love those red doors. No, so I was in retail for a while. I ended up in retail after I graduated college, and my husband moved to Tennessee, and we went to Tennessee and didn't know anybody. Little bitty town, you don't know anybody, you kind of can't get anywhere. So I ended up at Victoria's Secret for a while, and then it just kind of escalated there to where I ended up here in Houston as a store manager at a
If you
store
got any
in the
samples at
Galleria.
home, bring them in for the next podcast.
And I thought I liked it, but in all reality, I was stressed out all the time.
What, because the buyer's always right?
No, it was more pressure from above. I mean, you had to
Always.
hit those sales. And at one point I was told, I had one of the #1 stores in the Texas area. I had turned it around from when I took over it. It was just falling into the pits. And at one point I was told, you're great. We love you. We want so much for you, but it's not quite good enough.
Right.
And I was like, I can't give you any more. I'm working 80 plus hours a week. I have literally blood, sweat, and tears in this store. I can't give you anymore.
Right.
And their schedules for their store managers were a minimum of 45 hours a week salary. And you couldn't have weekends off. You couldn't take a Friday night off. Like if you asked because you had a family event, they're like, your family's above us? What? So I felt...
And no holidays.
No. So I decided I needed a change, and I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want somebody to tell me how much I could make, even though I was putting in so much. Like, sorry, no, you still can't make any more.
But she still wants to
Okay.
keep the car.
She wants the car.
I want the
wants-
car.
Hey, she can afford to do what she wants now with the car.
Yeah.
If it was 2 miles a gallon.
So I started thinking about things I could do, and I've always kind of been interested in real estate. I remember having I considered it a bad experience. My husband was like, it was fine. But I considered it a bad experience when we bought our first house in Tennessee. We bought from the builder. The wife was the agent. But nobody told us that, she didn't represent us. She only represented him. And she was very hands-off with us. And I remember doing our walkthrough, and I found something wrong. And the guy goes, this is only $190,000. If you wanted better, you should have bought more. And I was like,
He said that?
what?
Oh my goodness.
But there was nobody there to defend me,
I
right?
know, and some builders are...
So, he was going bankrupt, and we didn't know that either because nobody was there to help us to look into these things,
gotcha.
right? And then on the flip side, when we moved back here to Houston, when we sold our house, that agent, I mean, she just made things so much different. Like, she came in, she walked in, she told us how to make things look better in the house. We barely had any furniture. We'd just gotten married. We had a mattress on the floor. And she just helped us and elevated the look of the house. Granted, it didn't sell till we moved out and everything was gone. But she was just so much more engaged, and I felt like she was there to help us. And then when we moved here and bought our house here, again, we went to a builder, but that agent was like, look, I represent the builder. Let me refer you to this person that can actually help you and represent you. So,
but a lot of buyers don't understand that, do they? They don't. They think they get a better deal by going to the builder or going to the seller or contacting the seller.
And it's hard that you get someone that'll be that honest with you.
It is.
And that was a good agent, in all fairness, that said, look, here's the situation. And technically, the National Association of Realtors, we're supposed to do that, but
not everybody does. They see are the dollar signs, and you're not supposed to put that before your client. So when I was thinking about things I want to do, I like being around people. I liked helping the customer aspect of it, and I felt that in real estate I could do it on a much larger scale and help people elevate their lives with it, more than just a pair of shoes that makes you feel pretty for a few hours, Yeah,
I see that. And the first time I bought a house, I wasn't represented by an agent. When I just got over from the UK, I bought a VA foreclosure. And I'll never forget, I went downtown to sign all the closing docs, and it was 97 pages of signing and signing and signing. And there's me thinking, in a house, it's so easy. You sign 4 pages through an attorney, and then there was 97 pages of disclosures, and nobody explained it to me because I didn't have an agent. If I had an agent, at least they could have advised me even before I even made the offer. And even the agent over here that was selling the foreclosure, who represented the VA at the time, because it was a VA foreclosure, he never described anything to me. Nothing at all. So I really see that, and for first time home buyers, it's pretty overwhelming. And go out there and find yourself a good agent. But, Dawn, you sort of got into it, and I know from my experience with you, I actually love and adore the way that I don't know if I want to call it scripting, but the way you talk to people in such a manner. I mean, I've even asked you to design a class, to teach the way that you explain things to people. And it's so interesting, and me and James have spoke about this all the time, how you get 2 agents and you get one agent that can talk to people, get the information, and really find out what's motivating them and finding them how you can genuinely help them. And then you've got another agent, and we've had the same thing. That's why training is so important within the office, that really doesn't ask the same questions and doesn't see it all the way through.
Right.
And Dawn has always been so good at that. And that's one of the reasons why, I know you've sort of been in this for 3 years, but I think you've been pretty successful. I mean, I don't know, do you feel that, you've been successful for the 3 years as the owner of Century 21 Olympian? I think you've been very successful. Because a lot of agents come in with this conception, because they learn everything from real estate school. And my philosophy is that my job as a broker is to help you be successful and help you be productive and support you. And it's true coaching, in my opinion. And if it's not, my agents can tell me very, very direct. But I mean, with you had a lot of talent that you brought to the table, and a philosophy that is very client-based.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I think you've been productive, because the most important part is being productive. Correct, James?
Absolutely. That's the most important part. And I think for me, when I met you first, Dawn, the difference for me when meeting was the confidence. You didn't know, what you were doing. But,
sometimes I feel like I still don't. But
you weren't afraid to ask a question.
But you also wasn't afraid to turn around and say, let me get back to you. I'll find out and I'll get back to you.
That's the main difference with when you have new agents coming into the business. You want to be, that level of confidence. And you coming from a service background where you're dealing with the retail, where the customer is quote unquote always right, which we, they're not. That's a different eye to look at the business when you can come with a service level being for the forefront, because of course people can go and blast you, anywhere and say, oh, don't ever go back to Victoria's Secret. This lady Dawn's over there, blah, blah, blah. Because we still run that risk now in this business. Yeah. But it takes being able to be confident enough to come into the business, not knowing, and still be able to get out there in the street and to meet people. So that was the difference I saw in you. So, I think that it's been a good run.
Yeah, I think the only way to become knowledgeable in things and for people to trust you and trust your knowledge is the fact that you're not afraid to ask a question. So the only way that you can find things out is by asking questions, but you have to ask the right question to the right person, because if you don't, things can just fall apart more. So it's just learning where to go for the answers you need,
right,
and who to trust to give you the right ones. And I think on the flip side of that, if you're confident enough to tell your client, look, I haven't run into this before, because everything's different, every house is different, but I know who to go to. So give me a few hours, give me a day, let me see what I can find out. Right. And then you come back to them and say, look, this is the information that I found out. This is what we do to fix the problem.
Absolutely.
And that's the biggest problem that we have when real estate schools coach the agents, and this is the problem with TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission, and the way they coach their agents is because I understand why they're doing it, because they're looking at the ethics and the integrity from a customer standpoint. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of them, when they come through their basic training, is they have this idea that every transaction is the same and that there's a checklist, and we go down this checklist and we just check it off and go to the next stage. But no two transactions are ever the same.
Yeah, there's an issue with every transaction. Honestly, it makes me nervous when I have transactions that there haven't been an issue. Because I'm like, what is the other agent not telling me? What are people not telling me?
Right.
When's the shoe going to drop?
Right.
And I know that to some people that's a sad way to look at it, because I have had those smooth transactions where at the end of it, I was like, I hardly ever talked to this agent. Things just went through. But I'm always in the back of my head like, what's somebody not telling me? What's going wrong?
Well,
I feel like there's something I should be fixing right now.
Absolutely. One of my agents, a commercial agent, she wrote a commercial deal. It was like $5 million. And I wrote the contract for her because she'd never done a commercial contract before. And as you both know, commercial can be a little bit tricky. So I wrote the contract for her. I did everything. And I'll never ever forget this. She closed the deal. She picked up a nice big fat check. And then she turned around and said, that's the easiest deal I've ever done. And it was so funny. And I'm like, well, yeah, it was a little bit, because I sort of did it for you. But, I didn't mind, because at the end of the day, I want people to progress and,
absolutely,
and for them to develop. And I said, yeah, now we need to teach you how to write a commercial contract. So, Dawn, let's sort of push it down the tunnel a little bit. So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
So I definitely want to be in a position where I can expand and be able to, I know I have my own business now, but more create my own business. I want to be able to hire people to help me, because I think that's the only way that I'm not going to put myself in a position where I've hit a ceiling.
Right.
Because I can only do so much as one person. Mm-hmm. So I want to be able to hire people to help me, whether it's something as small as putting out signs or helping me make sure that my transactions are going smooth, a transaction coordinator. I also want to invest more in real estate as well and have more properties underneath me. I do believe that being in this industry, I've realized there's only so much land, and the more land you have, whether or not the market goes up and down, at the end of the day, the wealthier you and your family are going to be. Right. Because you'll always have a roof over your head at some point.
Right. And then in relation to, do you buy leads? I mean, are you somebody that buys leads from realtor.com? Or
no.
What's your feeling on that?
I mean, everybody's different. I don't buy the leads from like places like realtor.com and Zillow, because they're getting those leads from like har.com basically. Like, they're getting them from us. And a lot of them are people that are just scrolling through and they hit that button and they're like, yeah, let's talk to an agent, but then they don't respond.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, for a while there, you were helping us with the realtor.com leads and things. And
they didn't work for us.
I don't know how many leads I took and how many just never responded to any touches, even if I touched them 100
Well, the
times.
Realtor.com.
But I closed one. I mean, that's better than none.
Hey, that is better.
The
than
Realtor.com
none.
and Zillow, I mean, you know, yeah, they're generating leads from their website, but the truth of the matter is a lot of them now, they're actually generating them on Facebook, which is the same as what, you know, you can do and everybody else.
And as a new agent, at least I didn't have the influx of cash to just pour into those things. So I looked at, there's property time. I know some other companies call it desk time, whatever it is, where you answer the phone for the brokerage. I mean, my first deal I closed was over $400,000 from property time.
Yeah, well, I think we've got a pretty good, you know, property time system.
Yeah.
There's different things that we're doing in the background to sort of promote that.
There's things your brokerage can do that are free for you. So I've used those. I've generated friends and family on Facebook groups. I've closed some deals from people that were on Facebook that, you know, they mentioned, and I just like flipped into their DMs and be like, hey, I'm in this group and I'm an agent and I have friends that refer me through the Facebook groups. So I've closed deals through being on Facebook groups that's free. Friends, family, rental leads. I've changed rental lead into a sell and a purchase. Off of rental leads total, I've probably done almost $1 million in sales.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. And, you know, a lot of people, me and James talk about this all the time. They go for a rental, but they don't realize that they can buy because they're told, you know, just inaccurate information.
Right.
Where they get the information from at time. And I say to everybody, you know, with social medias out there, you really got to be careful where you get your information from. And there's some agents out there that really don't give value, and that's what you offer people as well, is value, you know, to your clients, because you're giving accurate information. I know you've got some information that you're going to bring up, you know, later on in the podcast, but, you know, that's why I think you've been successful, because what you're actually doing, what a good agent does, and that's what you do, is you give your client options on, and you give them a strategy on how you can get them from where they are now into the next step in their life. And you hope, and we hope, that it's buying a house. Like, you know, you said before, it's the biggest transaction that they buy when they buy a house.
Absolutely.
But sometimes people will come to you, and, you know, we have programs which some brokerages don't have, where, you know, they can come in and they can actually buy a house, you know, for basically first month and last month. And, you know, if they qualify for the credit score, that's not the ideal way for them to buy a house. It really isn't, because there's a lot of pitfalls with that. The best way for them to buy a house is to contact James and, you know, do it and buy the house through the, you know, the traditional methods.
Absolutely.
Whether it be FHA, conventional, or a VA or such like. That me and James spoke about, you know, a deal yesterday when you was explaining something to me about, you know, there's a buyer that a loan officer from another organization, basically, you know, 3 days before the transaction, it's so convoluted.
Right.
And it's not, like you said, it's sort of 6 of one, half as the other, why it's not closing. And that's also how you've been very successful, Dawn, is because you have a team approach. And like you said, if you don't know the answer, you've got a team of people, you've got, you know, a great guy in James, and you've got other people around you where you can always go get good information. You know, you're a problem solver. You're always solving the problem, you know, in the hope of getting somebody for a house. And if they can't buy now, then you can address the problem. And then you know, you keep them in your pipe and you follow. I mean, how do you keep in contact with people? If somebody says, okay, I can't buy now, but I want to buy in 6 months' time, what's your philosophy on keeping in contact with them?
I mean, it's random text messages. I mean, I probably should have like a better system of like a calendar and all that says, hey, touch this person. But I mean, I can be driving through an area and I'm like, oh yeah, Mr. Smith, he leased a home over here. Let me just say, hey, I'm in the area, drove by the house, just wanted to say hi, you know, see how things are going. It's just making those touches not always about business, and that's going to make them come back to you.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I've had a person that's leased 3 times with me, and it's just because I'll randomly send them a text saying Happy Mother's Day, or I do send those texts. Your lease is up. You gonna stay, or are we gonna look for something else? You ready to buy? Situation happened where they weren't able to buy this last year. They wanted to, but with COVID and everything, he lost his job, so they were gonna lease longer. It happens, but it's sort of a personal relationship. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm friends with these people. Like, we go get drinks or stuff. I'm not friends with them, but I'm friendly where they know they can come back and call me. I have some that call me that are like,
just giving you
have questions, just random real estate questions because of a family member. I had a family member passed, and they wanted to know, how do they transfer the title or get the person's deceased name off the title? Like, how do we do that? So I told them, you have death certificate. You have a will.
Right.
Is this person's name already on the title that you only want them on?
Yeah.
Then you just send that in. Simple, easy things. But they know they can come to you.
As a resource, you can be there for them.
When they're going to buy again, sell again, whatever it is, I know they're going to come back to me.
Yeah, dependability. Dependability goes a long way. You know what you ought to offer them? Free 30-minute ride at the drag track. In your Hemi car out there.
Hey, but I've already had to replace one water pump. That was a little expensive.
Yeah. It might be a bit expensive on the gas to go down that track. Anyway, so where else do you see yourself in 5 years? So you maybe want to invest in a few properties. Mm-hmm. I've got to bring something up which you told me about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Obviously you've been, a success, and you bought a house where? Manville? Mm-hmm. Okay. And how much?
Awesome loan officer on that deal too.
I know, he was amazing.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
My
James Lee
title issues
loan.
and everything.
There you go, James Lee. That's what happens when you buy James Lee loan.
There you go.
And when you've got a good realtor that can help you pick, as in Dawn, and buys a house. How much was your house?
At $375.
So you paid $375. New home builder.
Yes.
Okay, who was the builder?
Weston Homes.
Weston Homes. Okay.
I live in a Weston home as well.
Yeah, they don't build a bad house though.
Oh, that's a beautiful home.
Concerning some of the quality of some of the builders, they're actually a pretty good builder. And then you were saying, tell the story about she came in the office the other day and you explained.
Yeah, so the house across the street is one of the last houses in the neighborhood for new construction. It's actually smaller square footage, smaller lot, going for $470.
Woo! Almost $100,000 more.
Almost $100,000 more.
Oh my goodness!
And it sold at $470.
Wow,
that's amazing. That's just amazing.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So it went up 30% in 12 months.
So is that
less than? I'm not even there 12 months yet.
Here's my thing with that, right? So we're in this market. Is it hyped up? Is it real? Is it? Well, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this where we are
is partially hyped? I mean, there is an inventory shortage considering that there are more buyers in the market now. So, I mean, in just supply and demand, yes, there's more demand than supply. But if this was a normal market, if this was 2019, would we have that influx of buyers that we do now?
That's the thing. I think it gets exacerbated by the media as well. It
does, because whenever you have one of the news channels come in and say, oh my goodness, you're not going to be able to find a house. You're going to have to put $50,000 over. And then you have these other agents on their social media. They're making fun of it, and I laugh at it. I like them. It's things like that. But they're doing TikToks and reels of, we came in $50,000 over and still didn't get the house. And in some cases, that's it, but that's not every single case.
Right.
Or I can't get a house because I'm not cash. My last listing, we turned down cash offers. So cash isn't always king whenever you think of what the seller needs.
Yeah.
Some of them were, it wasn't necessarily a low ball. It was on par with some of the other ones.
Okay.
But they weren't willing to give my seller what they needed. They needed a lease back. There were certain things they needed, and they wouldn't give. So we didn't go with the cash offer.
Right, but that's one of the things that we teach you. We talk about it all the time. Give your clients value, but most of all, it's getting a strategy together that suits your seller or your buyer, and then negotiation comes in as well. And really, that's what it is, isn't it? It's putting a strategy together. It's not necessarily where it's the highest offer. We've had an instance before. We put a strategy together, and it was listed at $195, and we got it for $185. And the seller told us that there was higher offers, but they took our offer because of the strategy we put together. And what you're saying is so true.
Pick up the phone,
really
call
is.
the other agent. What does your seller need?
Absolutely.
You know, don't just automatically go, oh, you know, how much cash do you have? Okay, well then we're gonna do $20K over, and we'll waive appraisal. And don't automatically do that. I didn't waive appraisal on my recent
because the other
purchase.
agent doesn't care, and they don't really. It's like they're lazy. They don't follow through. It's a little bit like I go to kick a soccer ball, and I pull my leg back to kick the soccer ball, but I don't follow through to even touch the ball.
Some of them maybe, but not all of them. I think some of them just don't think on that same way. They just think, okay, highest, best offer. What's the highest and best we can do?
Right.
But that word best, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very, very good point.
What does that
Very
word
subjective.
best mean?
Yeah.
Best is subjective to that seller. You
Yep.
need to find out what best is for that seller.
And we you know, we taught at a real estate school that, you know, the best contract is when great minds come together, and, you know, basically everybody's on the same page, and that's really what you're talking about. You're right in what you're saying, and, you know, it is whatever the best offer, you know, for the meeting of the minds.
Yeah. And you and that, whether you're the buyer's agent, you got to work with the seller's agent, selling agent, working with the buying agent. You'll have to work together. It doesn't have to always come to a head where you're fighting each other.
Yes.
Like, you both want this to everybody to be happy. Well, I mean, you don't always want everybody to be happy.
As long as you're serving your clients, I would agree.
We
with
both
you.
want our clients to be happy. So where's that middle ground where both clients are happy? That doesn't mean we have to be sassy to each other and rude to each other. I mean, we have a common goal.
But some agents take it on where they're a little bit egotistical, which basically, in my opinion, makes them unprofessional. And that's where I think
those are the ones that I like to school when they're wrong.
Yeah,
that makes me happy. Is that wrong?
No,
absolutely
not at all. I totally agree with you. But I mean, if you can get into a position where you're like that, as long as your client is really being represented, then I think that's ideal. Sometimes it's fun to play with some of the other agents, to be perfectly honest. You know, I call it real estate poker.
When you get those that their poop don't stink, I'm just like,
Yeah, well, that's because it's egotistical.
That's when that Outcast song is in my head.
Yeah.
Roses really smell.
You know,
go.
my first mentor said, professionalism is taking the emotion out of the statistics and taking it out of the complete conversation and the contractual process. Get rid of the emotion.
You got to leave the emotion to the buyer and the seller.
And
if they're going to have ones with emotion, and that's why they hire you, is because they need somebody to help them guide to not make those emotional decisions. It's like those silly love letters. I got love letters on my last listing. Did my seller see them? Nope. Sure didn't. I told them that they had them, and if they want to see them, they can see them after close.
Right.
No, she was all about wanting to see them. He was like, I don't care. What's the numbers? Right. But I didn't want it to skew their idea of an offer. So I was like, you're not going to see them. You have them. You can see them later. Because they asked, because that's also in the media, on social media, is these love letters to the sellers. She's like, did we get any? I was like, yes, but you can't see them. You can see them after.
Right. No, that makes sense, because if you take people make emotional decisions, and they're not always the best for them. And that's why we are the professionals. We're licensed and educated to be able to handle these transactions the way that they should be handled. So I respect that approach. Sure.
Yeah, okay.
He apparently doesn't.
I like to keep it professional all the way through. Perhaps that's the wrong way to be. But there you go. Yeah. When I dealt with foreclosures, and we closed 199 transactions with all that chaos in 2000. As a listing agent, I try to stay away from the conversation part. I'd speak to them, but sometimes the questions that the agents would ask are things that I know from a professional standpoint I shouldn't say. You know, how much will it take to get the deal?
Right.
You know, what do I need to offer? Full price.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Even more.
That's always going to be the answer. But like, if I'm calling a listing agent in this market to find out what the seller needs, I make it clear that I'm not talking about dollar amount. I'm talking, do they need a lease back? Is there a contingency that they need on their part?
Right.
Do they need an extended closing date? Like, what is it? You know, do they want to keep the stove. I don't know. Like,
whatever it is.
What
right?
is it that we can make it more favorable?
I call that creative thinking. That's really what it is. So it works out for everybody. That's and that's a meeting of the minds.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, Jacko, can we bring up the Biden tax grant program? And let's sort of get Dawn and James's for those viewers who are looking at the podcast. Mr. President came up with a government tax grant program, I believe they call it, for first-time home buyers. And we just want to bring it up and get James's sort of opinion of it as a loan officer, and to get Dawn's opinion, what she thinks as a real estate agent. What do you think of it, James?
Full disclosure, this opinion is mine and mine solely. I am James Lee, and MLS number 4038441. Solely my opinion. I really, truly, I get the sentiment behind it, but it's an incomplete kind of deal. I mean, it's a program that's there, it's available. Excuse me, and anyone is welcome to go and research this. It's called the Down Payment Towards Equity Act of 2021. You can Google it, pull it up. But it is it's for first-time home buyers, and just for those that aren't aware, first-time home buyers are for those people who have not owned a home in the prior 3 years. So even if you owned a home 5 years ago and you're renting now, you quote unquote qualify for first-time home buyer programs again. So just so everyone's aware of that. But with that said, this program is to provide, $25,000 is what it says. For the first-time home buyer. But here's the caveat. You have to be a first-generation home buyer, which means that your parents and or your guardians must have never owned a home during your lifetime. So if your parents owned a home, you don't qualify for it. If they lost it during a foreclosure or whatever, that if they own that property, you don't qualify for the program. And that eliminates a lot of people, quite frankly. I get, again, what they were trying to do, and they're trying to make it to where, folks can get money. And I think that's great. But I think there could be a better use of the money. Put it into, bring down the cost of some of this materials that are coming in, so the price of homes aren't so high for people, so they can afford to get into homes a little easier. But that's just me. There's other details to it. You have been a certain 120% of the area median income. You can't make over that.
House was like what, 110% of the median value, something like that.
So if you was in Biden's position, what would you do to try and help a first-time home buyer? How would you approach the problem? Well, let's see if we can help Mr. Biden today.
Well, he needs some help, but that's neither here nor there. But nevertheless, like I just said, I think there is a way to keep the price. I mean, you can't tell someone what the house can sell for, but maybe the opportunity for these builders that are building homes, because the price of home right now, there's no regulation on it. If I can get you to buy a house for $300,000 and it's only worth $100,000, and that's what I want to sell it for, if you buy it, then so be it. You can do that. But I think people right now are priced out of being able to even buy a home, period. In certain areas, a lady I closed on yesterday, she's from New York. She said if she was still living in New York, she'd never be able to buy a home. Mm-hmm. She just bought a $350,000 home yesterday. So I think people are in certain areas to where they cannot, even with the price of homes and gasoline and everything else that goes up, the income pace for people doesn't match the increase. So, they're left out of buying a home, period.
So as a comparison, we've got down payment assistance programs, which I don't think is the best solution. I think there's a lot of complications with down payment assistance programs. And, you talk about a ZETH program, correct? That's
one of them.
Right.
That's available, yeah.
And you prefer a ZETH program?
ZETH or TSHAC, there's another one that works. There's a lot of them that are available.
And they are state-based, correct?
State, correct.
Okay. Do you think something like that is a better idea than, because basically what this tax grant is, it's basically giving it's giving them assistance against their closing costs, correct?
Well, it's
just hard to qualify, and there's too many caveats, correct?
It's a grant for these folks that hit these qualifications, not having been from a family that owns a home prior to, and being, under the 120% of the area median income, and being, I think for the full 25, you have to be considered in a socially disadvantaged individual, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's what's confusing to me.
Yeah,
so there's an underlying
mentally
issue
disadvantaged.
here
I don't know if that
with
includes
the low to middle income. If they're a first generation home buyer, why aren't we putting things into educating them on their credit? Some of them don't even know what credit is, so they can't even qualify for a mortgage to get to this.
That's what it should be a requirement.
And I mean, some of these programs, yes, they have to take a one-day class on how to handle a mortgage. They need more than that.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Why can't some of this funds be poured into educating people on their finances and what a credit score is?
It should be.
You ask them, they don't even know what their credit is, or if they can be 60 years old and not
but
have
part of that
credit.
problem is they go to things like Credit Karma and whatever it is, and all the others. And the truth of the matter is that credit score's not accurate. That's not an accurate.
And it's even before that, though, Steve. I think it starts in just education, period, Don. Because you hit the nail on the head. What you don't learn, we're still learning about the Gettysburg Address in school. And there's no class that requires any of these students that are graduating to become part of the real world, some type of finance, so they can understand what credit is, how to budget, how to save, those kinds of things. No one teaches that. You have to use that as an elective if you really want to get in and learn it. Economics is required, right? But it's what, half a semester? You get in and you learn a little bit about it, but students they aren't learning. So to your point, that money could be used for a program to be created to educate someone so they can learn how to get their own money, and everything's not a free gimme kind of thing. And folks will have a little bit more skin in the game and have a better opportunity to hold on to what they purchase, and we'll be better off in the future.
That's with these things. I think they're great. I mean, when I first bought my home, I bought in 2009. I got the tax credit, so I mean, I'm not poo-pooing on the idea, but I think that there's an underlying issue that's not being addressed.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can't qualify for the loan to begin with, how are you going to qualify for the grant? And it's teaching people about the finances, about their credit score, how to qualify.
But education and knowledge is always king.
And just so everyone's clear, it's not a tax credit. This program, and it's not approved.
Do you think we'd be better off with the tax credit?
I don't know. It's debatable, but it's not approved and it hasn't been passed. So if you go to some company and try to ask about it, it's not approved yet.
Yeah.
But this is actually money that they're supposed to be giving up to $20,000 unless you're a socially disadvantaged individual, which I still don't know what that definition means or who determines it. Then you get the full 25, but it's towards your down payment and closing costs. That's money.
It's just down at closing. It's just on your CD saying, you got a grant for $25,000.
I mean, at one time, wasn't the tax credits for first-time home buyers, but a first-time home buyer was somebody that was considered somebody that hadn't had a home in the last 5 years or something.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, the last 3 years, that's the window.
To me, that's a better approach. Because there are people, and even I know people that I foreclosed on them with, working for the banks, and I'm still keeping contact with them where they've been continually working on their credit, and they're still waiting to buy a home, and they haven't even recovered from that.
Right.
So I think a first-time home buyer program would be better for people that was, followed the KISS rule, which is keep it simple, stupid, but where if they haven't owned a home within 3 years, and I think even if they paid their rent on time for 3 years and they can prove that, then I think that's a better way to approach the problem for a first-time home buyer.
Let me read this little caveat that I was looking for. And I knew this socially disadvantaged deal. This is how it's actually written in the bill. The act defines socially disadvantaged individuals as those who have been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias because of their identity as a member of a group without regard to their individual qualities. An economically disadvantaged individual is one who meets the bill's income requirements. Here we go. Any individual identifying as Black, Hispanic, Asian American, Native American, or any combination thereof will be presumed to meet this definition. Any individual who does not identify as such will have to prove by a preponderance of evidence that they are socially disadvantaged.
How the heck do you do that?
How? This is actually from this website. Hold on, let me make sure.
Housing Wire.
No. This is one I actually found. Yeah, this is the National Council of State Housing Agencies. So they're ncsha.org. And this is the Down Payment Toward Equity Act of 2021.
So is this
if there's anything that's divisive, hello.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm a Demi. I have no problem with it. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think this helps the first-time home buyers at all. I think it's complicated. I think it in itself, it's sort of anti-cultural. You know, I don't want to use the word.
I know it's not approved, but it's...
but the truth of the matter is, I think they could make it an awful lot simpler for people that, I think the old rule was better, to be perfectly honest, the 3-year rule. You haven't owned a home in 3 years, then you're classed as a first-time home buyer.
Well, that still exists, but that's just one caveat of this one.
But this is overcomplicated.
It's because they don't really want to give out the money.
Yeah, but that's part of the problem. We need to help people to get onto the housing ladder, because the longer they leave it to get on the housing ladder, then the harder it is to get on, for the reasons that you said about your home.
Yeah.
And there are some programs out there. So
in order for this bill, does that mean I have to violate fair housing and ask questions that I should
that's a
be
good point.
asking?
That's a very good point. That is an excellent point.
Would I be violating fair housing to ask these questions?
Would you?
That's a good point, isn't it, James?
Would you? And what if I identify as one? You may not see me as that, but that's how I identify. Mm-hmm. So how can you keep me from participating?
And just so everybody in the podcast knows, as real estate agents,
the world we live in.
What we are basically taught is that we aren't supposed to ask questions like anything to do with race. Correct?
Yeah.
We're not allowed to ask about race, and it's also considered steering as well. There's different terms that we have. But with this program...
It's exactly what I have to do to get you to qualify for this program.
For that full amount.
Or the loan officer, I guess.
Right, for that full amount. So if you... from the way it's written, you can get up to $20,000.
It's a contradiction of fair housing. I think Dawn's right.
Up to $20,000. But if you qualify for the second little level... then, of course, you have to disclose that information. Now, us as lenders, we have to, if there's a visual, if I see you, we meet in person, I have to take a visual observation on what I think you are if we see each other. But if we never talk over the phone, if we never meet in person, it's all over the phone, then, it's just an assumption. So,
you never met our clients this past one until closing day.
Absolutely. Till closing, yeah.
It's far too complicated. I think it's...
Hey, don't get me started, man.
No, it is. It's
That's your boy, though. That's your boy. Your boy bringing this thing in here.
Yeah, well, corruption.
Kudos to him.
It's good. It's good to get away from corruption. So there you go. And then, Dawn, what's your opinion about, the current inventory crisis?
So with my clients that want to sell, their biggest fear right now is, where do I go?
Nowhere to live.
So I have a listing coming up next week, actually, and he's so nervous that they're not going to find a place to move in time. So I've been talking to them about listing their house 2 months now. We're finally going to sign the papers, hopefully Tuesday.
Jacko, can you bring up that ABC 13?
And they're just where am I going to live? They know what they want. They have a specific reason that they're moving and for what they need to grow. And they're just if we can't find it, what are we going to do?
Now, are they actively listed already? Mm-hmm.
No, we will go. We'll get our pictures on the 17th.
Okay.
And then as soon as I get those, we'll go active. But we're doing the final walkthrough of the house. They've got everything. They've done everything to the house that I told them to do. They've fixed some things. They've cleaned some things up. They're ready to go now. But I just talked to her the other day, and she's like, "Man, what What if I'm homeless?
So there's one guy that I work with at he's at a different brokerage. His strategy has been he's done heavy listings, but he'll send them to me. He'll say, hey, they want to sell their house. Can they buy something? So once I determine that they can buy something, he starts sending them properties, and he doesn't even make their property live as far as listing until we've done that a couple of times, and it's worked perfully.
They've had your information for 2 months. Right. And I call her every day.
Right.
Did you call James yet?
Right. So it's like, hey, let's get it squared away. Let's make sure they can buy something, and we kind of.
And I told you about this podcast. So if you're watching, call James.
I'm here.
So do you think that what do you think the future holds with the current, do you think it will progress? Do you think this is something that will lead to hyperinflation? Do you think, I mean, what's your opinion? I don't see it leading to all this panic, hyperinflation, and I just don't see it happening.
I mean, I think just like everything with the economy, it's going to be cyclical. It'll eventually even back out. It might take 2-3 years, and it also depends on what the rates go to. I mean, if the rates suddenly skyrocket to 6, 7, 10%, it's going to slow the buyers down.
But
will be fine.
But when we had all these foreclosures in 2000, I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was in some cities because our prices didn't go up as much. But now our prices are going up. Then it's a question how it's going to affect us.
This is all in something that I want to call it an opportunistic event, right? So you think about the whole lumber prices. And I've seen several, of course, the rumors, I have not confirmed any of it, but guys that have worked and they carry these trailers full of wood, I've seen several videos of them talking about being at these mills, and there's tons of lumber that's available.
So do you think this is capitalist America making...
Well, yeah, these guys have taken an opportunity to say, hey, they just kind of cut the spigot off a bit. So it's driving up the price, which trickles down to the builders, which trickles down to the consumer. So everyone's taking advantage of this opportunity. So you got builders that were selling a home 30 days ago for $300,000. Today, that home may be $320,000.
So where's our big government coming to fix that? What's Biden doing about that?
But what's happened to the trickle-down effect then? With jobs, you don't work.
Well,
that's basically what you're saying.
I mean,
that's what people say with this trickle-down effect. You've got all repubs.
Well, I think people are taking advantage of the situation.
But I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's like I own a business because if I made more money, I wouldn't employ more people. If I don't need them, I'm not going to employ them.
But if you have less money, how are you going to employ more people?
But with technology the way it is,
but
I'm in the middle of closing offices down and just going to an online system.
For now. But you still may need more people to run that as your business increases.
Not as much. Not as much. People are like the HOAs that we're on. They do it online. People prefer online. People prefer to pay and do maintenance requests. And, we do violations online.
But it's inevitable, though. As your business grows, it's only so much you as one individual can do.
How do you say that about Amazon, then? Employs 80,000 people nationally, but because of Amazon, right, it's put 1 million businesses out of...
But Amazon, as their business has grown, they've employed more people.
80,000 compared to 1 million businesses. And that you've only got to walk down the street and you see... commercial lease space. Commercial's taking a huge hit at the moment.
But is that because of Amazon or is that because COVID and everything shut down?
Yeah.
You can't blame Amazon.
I think it's both. I think it's
Amazon definitely was able to take advantage of the situation.
I just think it speeded it up.
Yeah.
It speeded it up. I mean, look at Zillow and look at realtor.com. They're going to put a lot of realtors out of business. It's either adapt or die.
Well, I think that's the biggest tragedy anyways with some people.
I mean, Zillow is ripping people off, in my opinion. In my opinion, Zillow isn't good for the client.
Realtor.com. You had the same discussion about Walmart years ago. They put everybody out of business.
Absolutely.
But, I mean...
that's why Walmart have now got a huge competitor in Amazon.
Right, they get to taste their own medicine.
Right, that really is. But they either adapt or they die.
Well,
people are adapting. I can order from Costco and have it within 2 hours at my front door. So, I mean,
you got to have an online presence.
Absolutely, but that's exactly the point I'm making. So that's when you evaluate yourself. You know, like my office in Pearland cost me $15,000 a month. Just cost. And people don't go into the office. Agents don't use the office like they used to. So why do I need to pay that $15,000?
But that money is advertising.
Precisely. That's exactly my point. So why do that trickle down effect doesn't work? I'd rather put that money into advertising to get directly with technology like it is, and put the marketing, the advertising in front of the people that we feel are interested in.
Well, maybe I didn't understand where you were getting when you brought that up, because what I was talking about is just the cost of our lumber. They're saying how it's
no, I agree with you. But then you're saying, well, it passes down to...
Right, the cost is going down to the consumer.
At the same time, saying that with businesses in general, when businesses don't pay the taxes that they should be, we pay more tax in America than any other country. If you take the cost of healthcare and the quality of healthcare, and you add that onto your taxes, you'll pay more taxes than they do in Europe.
Get it. But the lumber issue is not about taxes.
No, but that's the society that we are in America.
They're taking advantage of the situation.
I love Texas and I love America, but that's where capitalism goes too far.
Right. It's trickling down to...
And that's what's happening is there's people who own lumber companies that are taking advantage, which is making it hard for people. I spoke to an architect about 3 months ago, and he turned around to me, and a builder that used to work for us and now working for one of the builders, KB Homes. And he turned around to me and he said, you know what the problem is? He said, when the lumber prices go up, now we're waiting for the lumber, which means now that they've got to pay for the contractors. If they don't pay the contractors to work, they lose the contractors to other companies, or they go off and do another job. Then also, so they've got to pay for that. Then they've got to pay the additional cost for the lumber. And that's why there's a 6-month waiting list for some of them houses.
Again, it starts with the opportunity. This opportunity that they're taking.
And that's why I think that, you know, and I agree, it's always the poor guy at the bottom that pays the price. And even this, like you said, with this system, with the tax credit, I don't think it's going to help the smaller guy on the bottom. And he puts you as an agent in a bad situation. You're right in what you're saying with fair housing. This has not been thought through. It hasn't been thought through. I don't think it's anything to do with big government. I just don't think it's like the real estate world with Texas Real Estate Commission. They do it to protect the client, but they don't do it to help the industry. There's some things they don't do to help the industry. What they should be doing is teaching about how to make agents productive in relation to the client getting more out of the agent. And that's where the brokers should be responsible about training. But some brokers don't care. You're an agent out there. You're an independent contractor. And you made a good thing the other day when you turned around and said when you walk in to buy a Rolls Royce, you negotiate the price.
No, because you know what you're coming to get.
Right, and I know from Dawn's point of view, she's worth more than 3%.
Right.
That's why she's on this podcast. Like I say to you all the time, some agents are worth more than 3% because the quality of what she offers. I mean, I think you're worth more than 10%.
Hey, I think so too.
Yeah, I'll give you 11.
Hey, that'll work. I'll take the 1%, man, every little bit.
So, how do you think COVID? You mentioned COVID. How do you think COVID's changed our industry?
It's definitely changed where people want to live, and my degree is in sociology. And if you look back over time in history, people do this influx of rushing to the city, rushing out of the city, rushing into the city, rushing out of the city. And I think COVID pushed where people were rushing out of the city into the suburbs. So that's why there's this big push for the suburban house, is they don't want to be on top of each other anymore. Whereas, but if, like, I'm looking at condos and townhomes for someone who wants to purchase investment properties, they're sitting on the market still 90, 123 days. And they're listed right, but people aren't moving into the condos. They're moving into the suburbs.
Well, I think part of that has happened because people are working remotely and
They
not
need
working
more space.
well, they need office space. There's some people that have decided now, well, I'm going to work at home, and it suits the companies because they can reduce their costs. You know, their fixed costs. They're working at home. There is one of our clients that's actually moved from California, and they've moved to Austin, where we've helped them we put him in contact with a great agent in Austin to buy a house, and the same house that they owned in California in Silicon Valley is a 3-bedroom 2-bath for $1.5 million. They bought a house in Austin, which is on half an acre, 4-bedroom 2-bath with a pool and all the other stuff that goes with that. The fancy patio on the back, up-to-date subdivision, and it, for like $600,000. And they're working remotely, and they're still working for the same employee.
Right.
And that's why I think our industry is going to change. I really think our industry, we'll sort of save that for another video on how I think a real estate agent in 5 years' time is going to be completely different. And I think we'll still be selling homes for 3% or whatever it is that's negotiated. I mean, that 3% isn't a fixed price. Everybody thinks it's a fixed price, but it's completely negotiated. But the truth of the matter is, I really think there's going to be a different type of agent out there, successful agent, doing things. But we'll save that for another video. And demand itself on the property, we was talking yesterday. Do you feel it's area specific?
In some cases, yes. Like I said, the places in the townhomes and condos in the Galleria and Midtown and places like that, they're sitting there. Whereas places out in the suburbs, you've got Katy, Pearland, Manville, people even traveling down to Iowa Colony and Rocheron, where a couple of years ago people would be like, I'm not going to live out there.
Hey, that's when we moved out there. It's empty. It's cows out here.
They're moving out there because, like I said, they want more space. They may only come from a 2-bedroom townhome, but now they want 3-4 bedrooms plus an office because both people are working from home. So, like, my house now, we have an office downstairs and turned one of the bedrooms into an office as well.
There you go. That's back to my point.
There's just 2 of us and 2 dogs, and I think they own the house, but that's another conversation.
The dogs always own the house. You like it or not, they
you live with them.
Yes. But I mean, I needed an office, he needed an office. Absolutely,
and that's I think the COVID has actually just speeded up the situation. That's what I was saying. It's just speeded it up, and a lot of people now, they are working remotely. I just think it's really pushed the envelope out, and I think people have been reluctant to do it pre-COVID, but they've sort of been forced to do it with COVID. They've been forced to sort of work from home, and I think as they've done that, the companies have realised the benefits.
Absolutely.
And that fear of people not being productive because they're working from home is kind of subsided.
That's exactly the point.
Because they are being productive.
Absolutely. And the people that have suffered, I think, is retail. It breaks my heart, to be perfectly honest, to see some of the companies that have been retail companies for years and years, and, to see them close down.
Well, that kind of started like 2000.
So speaking of retail, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dawn, but do you remember this Houston Steakhouse around the corner? It's closed down. Some of these restaurants have been around forever. That Barry's Pizza that's around there closed down. They've been kind of like landmarks in Houston. They're just no longer here because of this
Dave and Buster's right next to our office.
Closed down.
I'll never forget taking Jack as a 3-year-old and playing for them tickets and thinking we'd won the jackpot because he's got this 6-foot teddy bear.
Right.
I mean, it was it's great memories that you've lost with that. And the other, I was talking to my wife the other day, and we're talking about Barry's Pizza. There you go. And I was talking to my wife yesterday, and she says, I've got to go to Bank of America because her mother has an account at Bank of America, and she went to 2 Bank of Americas, and they've closed down.
Really?
Well, yeah. Well, that's one of the businesses they reckon is going online. That they reckon that the banking industry is moving now to going online.
Now there is, just outside of my neighborhood, they built a shopping center, and in that shopping center is a Bank of America, but it's ATM only.
See?
Like there's no people there. If you want to talk to somebody, you can push a button on the ATM.
Really?
Yeah. That's
and it used to be a full branch?
No. The shopping center's brand new, and then it's Bank of America.
That's what I'm saying about it's really hit commercial. On one of the podcasts, we'll get somebody from the Arden Group here who we lease from, real nice guy. They own 38 properties in Houston. And they were saying that, their vacancy rate is actually pretty good. But I've got to tell you, their rents are very, very competitive.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But And that's, I think, is making a difference. But there's a lot of changes in the industry. Jewelry stores are closing. Jewelry stores are going online. Banking's going online. I think it's such a shame to sort of see that. And I find it hard just from my generation, losing that personal contact, just like you said. I mean, and that's the sad part with it all, because at times it loses that personal side of it.
I do think Gen Xers are going to lose that personal interaction.
Let me tell you, it drives me nuts. I'm at home and my wife turns around.
We will.
And we turn around and we say, okay.
Or Gen Zers. Sorry, Gen Zers won't have any idea. Not Gen X, Gen Z. I know my alphabet, y'all, I swear.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's the Gen Zs.
Absolutely. But it drives me nuts when my daughter comes home from, university, and then I say to my wife, go knock on Jill's door. And she says, okay. And then she ends up texting Jill. Come out to the kitchen. It's like,
hey, sometimes, man, you just don't feel like walking to the other room. You know what I mean? I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty. My son's upstairs. He got his door closed or his music playing. I'm hitting the text.
My husband and I can be sitting next to each other and text each other something.
We do that as well.
We'll text each other TikTok or a reel instead of being like, hey, look at this.
Right, we'll do the same.
And instead of having a conversation, we're sitting there like, oh, look at this one. We're both looking at TikToks and reels.
That's where we live, right?
It happens. But, you have the generation of the, like my mother-in-law, she's in her mid-70s. She refuses to do things online, like 100% refuses. And there's things that she has to do online.
Thing with the Homeowners Association management that we manage. We took it over from basically a paper-based company, and either one or two things happens: they love us or they hate us, because we're predominantly based online, and they hate it. They hate it.
And quite frankly, if people really thought about it, the physical being able to handle a piece of paper is so much less secure than a digital copy. Because
she disagrees.
You can lose
She
it.
disagrees.
I know she does.
Oh, yeah.
I know she does. And we try to tell people, listen, there's IP addresses that can be tracked. There's so many things that can trace it back to. That's why you type in, how do I build a bomb to kill blah, blah, blah. They're going to find out who you are. Because you just can't say it. You put all that kind of stuff in your computer, they're going to find you. So, But I know there's people that feel that way. They don't trust the computers. They're the devil. But, it's whatever.
But, at the end of the day, we're still mammals. We still need have that herd mentality. It's just built and ingrained in us.
Right.
So even though we're going mostly online, there's still going to be times where people are going to say, hey, let's go grab a margarita, because they need that physical touch.
Yes.
Like you innately need that physical touch.
We're meant to be in a commune with others.
Right. And then tell us about your experience with, I know I've told you my experience in the past with realtor.com and Zillow on their flood rating and their Zestimates, which I think is totally inaccurate. What's your feeling on that as a working agent out there, in the field?
So with the realtor.com flood rating, we've had some clients that we send them a house. It's a great house, exactly what they want. And they come back with realtor.com says this flood rating is a 4. And they don't want anything greater than a 2. And I'm like, what does that even mean?
Oh, that was my next question, actually.
But they're not from here to begin with.
Really bad.
I know, they're not from here to begin with. So I'm like, anywhere in Houston, you're not going to have a 1 or a 0. Like, you want a bayou city. Like, the bayous overflow. That's what happens. Our streets flood. They're designed to. That's what happens. We get hurricanes because, that's geographically
Welcome
what
to the
happens.
Gulf in Texas.
Yeah.
We have an insurance company. I have no idea what a 4 is.
I don't know, but
it's what they consider a moderate risk. So
they're like, it's too risky.
They recommend.
Well, what's a moderate risk?
Well, that it could,
what's a moderate risk according to?
Look at Harvey.
50-50.
Look at Harvey. Things flooded that had never flooded before.
Exactly.
Nobody can tell you this will not flood.
Yeah.
Nobody. If they tell you that, run, because who knows what else they can tell you.
Exactly.
Nobody can tell you that.
If it rains for 10 days straight anywhere, it's going to flood, period.
And to both of you, my next question is regarding flood, wind and hail insurance. How do you feel it affects clients and it affects the purchasing process?
It's a huge part of it because, quite frankly, it's a part of their qualifying. If you cannot, you can qualify for the mortgage payment, right? The principal and interest. Then you got to throw on taxes. You have to throw on the insurance. And if the insurance is ridiculously high, then that may keep you from being able to qualify for that
So
home.
it basically pushes up their closing costs.
I mean,
Not their closing costs per se necessarily, just their qualifying. They can drive down their buying power.
Yeah, their debt to income ratio.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone is, they're qualified. That's where I try to run a range with people to kind of give them a.
I was trying to walk you into perhaps the Biden program has something a plus, but it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, so because the insurance piece of it can really determine. Because I always tell people, listen, if you're buying a house in Brazoria County, Galveston County, some parts of Montgomery County, Chambers County, you're going to need windstorm insurance. So you got to take that into consideration that on top of just the regular hazard insurance, there's hurricane insurance that you have to get. Period. And that can drive down your buying power.
Yeah. How about your Dawn? What's your experience on that from a client standpoint?
So I've had a couple. I had first-time home buyers buying a brand new build home. They went with the builder lender, and this builder happens to have their own insurance too.
Oh, they're starting to do that more.
They have their own insurance.
They're starting to do that.
And so I told them, I was like, look, shop around the rates. I gave them some people to talk to. I was like, they'll explain what you're getting with what it is. So they decided not to go with the builder's insurance, right? So they sent the builder's lender their insurance, and they're like, you can't buy the home because it puts you out of the debt to income. You can't afford this insurance. You can't buy the home. So they're like, well, what do we do? So they had to use, I was like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to use the builder's insurance to close.
Right.
After you close,
get your own.
Change to who you want to. I was like, what do you? Yeah, they're like, they just told us that we can't close. We can't do the house because our insurance is too expensive. We can't afford the house.
Freedom of choice. That's absolutely.
I was like, I was like, are you kidding? I was like, what insurance? They're like, we wanted, I'm not going to say the name of the builder, but
that was a new builder?
It's a new build, yep. And the house was going to be about $210,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, they couldn't afford the house because they weren't going.
And James, explain to us what you were trying to explain to me yesterday regarding, and you did explain it to me, but I think we need to explain it to the builders. When you buy a house and you have the appraisal, and normally with a house with an appraisal, obviously you've got coming in, and then that appraisal value has to be justified. And you were saying that perhaps you thought that the builders have an influence on the appraisal.
They can have an influence, or they have their own comps. So whatever they sell their home for, that's going to be their comp. They control the comps in the neighborhood. That's why they get so upset if a value comes in low, because it's like, oh no, we got the comps and I got this and that. Well, I mean, that's fine, but we still have an opinion of an appraiser to say, hey, whether or not this value is there.
And do you feel builders manipulate them?
They absolutely can.
How?
They control it. It's whatever they want to put. I've had builders.
So if they physically sell a house for $300,000,
I'm going to give you an example just so you understand. I've had a builder on the house, what the home was appraised for. They didn't want that to be disclosed because it would affect their comps. They sold the house for what it appraised for, but on their documents, they wanted it to be a higher amount. So when they show, their comps or whatever in the neighborhood, they'd be able to show that higher value, even though that house didn't appraise for that much. They literally asked that question. I was like, I have nothing to do with that. What y'all do on your side, but this is what we're going to
So basically, say it was appraised at $325, they put it in at $380 as a closing figure, then gave the buyer $60,000 for closing costs?
Well, you can't do that. But on our side of it, they just put the number, the actual sales price, as like a reduction for the buyer. It wasn't like a credit towards closing costs. They just on paper made it look like it was a reduction from the actual price. That's what it sold for.
That sounds a little bit like what was going on in the 2000s.
It's a manipulation of the numbers. It's just moving the numbers around.
And why do you think they push so hard for you to use their lenders?
Exactly, because they can do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nope, they're not going to get any pushback.
And a lot of buyers, though, have this misconception. They say, well, I'm saving all this money by going to my lender at, whatever builder it is. And like you said, with the insurance. But they're not. They're over the term of the loan, they're actually paying more.
Here's the thing. When you go into, and I'm not knocking any builder, you got to get your hustle however you're gonna get it. But what consumers don't understand is that builders walk into this plan before there's a shovel in the ground, knowing what they're going to sell those homes for. And they count for down payment assistance, they count for closing costs they're going to give away, they count for incentives. So those homes are already overpriced, period. So anything that they go in there with, they're not going to lose. The builder won't lose. You can't go in and you feel like, oh, we're negotiating and we got this. Yeah, you think you are, but that's just what they're,
It's already on a piece of paper with that salesperson.
Exactly.
They already know.
And that's what saddens me when you get buyers that go in there, not represented, go into the builders, they sit down with that sales consultant at the home who basically represents the builder. They're an inactive agent. So they basically,
they work for the builder.
They work for the builder. I'm trying to put my words. They don't necessarily have to be factual because they work for the builder. As agents, we have to be factual and honest and represent the client.
They have no ethics committee behind them.
Absolutely, and no organization controlling.
No.
Or monitoring them. And we've had instances where we've made offers for clients with builders, and on the specs it says, there's 2 air conditioners, and then when we do the walkthrough, there's 1 air conditioner.
Get your inspections on a new build.
Yeah,
they try you don't need an inspection. We have all these people that come walk through. Oh no, get an inspector to go through there.
We had one the other day, and one of our
money.
agents got upset because they got the inspection done, and on the inspection it said that the grading was backwards and going towards the house. And it's a matter of time before it floods. Mm-hmm. And it was, south of Beltway 8, sort of near where you are, and the agent sort of got upset. And then what I said to the agent was, I'll call the inspector and see what he says, and he explained it. As an inspector that we use, 514 inspections, and he went and did it, and then he explained it. And then he said, well, when I was out there, I don't know if you know, but 3 doors down, it's been flooded.
Oh, wow.
And that's what happened is the grading wasn't correct with the builder. So that inspection is so important.
And some things that I'll tell my buyers who are buying new construction, I'm not telling them this because I think all builders are sleazy and they're going to try to get away with things, because they're not.
No, there's some good guys out there.
But it's humans doing these builds, and humans have errors. So that's why you get your inspection, is to make sure that these errors are caught before you move in and not after. So we had one, he wasn't my buyer client, he sold, but he was actually a buyer client for Snate. Hey, Snate. Snite. Sorry. And he told me that, he wasn't going to get an inspection. And both her and I were like, you kind of need to get one. So we got one and found out the floors are buckling. He would have moved in a month, maybe later, his floors would have started popping up.
Oh, wow.
For a new home?
For a brand new build. Yeah. They did something wrong with the flooring, and the wood was going to just start popping up.
He wouldn't have known if he got an inspection.
Not until after he moved in and was all moved in, and then what kind of hassle would that be?
Wow.
And then in my house, there was something wrong with the type of, I'm not an electrician, so I don't know how to explain it, but there was something wrong with the way they hooked up the AC to the electrical, where my AC would have shorted out, possibly caused a fire. So they had to go in and fix that. I mean, the builders will fix it. All I do whenever I have a build, whether it's my home or my buyers, you send them the inspection. There's no negotiation. You send them the inspection and say, fix it. 99.99% of the time, they fix everything on there.
So with everything we've said in relation to the problems that you can get with buying new construction, do you think the builders are basically price gouging?
Well, you can't really call it that. But they're definitely taking advantage of the situation.
An advantage of the low inventory?
Yeah, low
or
inventory.
All of the above?
Oh, like I mentioned before with the whole lumber thing, it's all kind of goes down to the consumer, where the consumer is the one that's having to pay for it. And unfortunately, many of them go in without any kind of representation. And of course, the person that's there with the smiling face is working for the builder.
And what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's price gouging? Or opportunism?
It's opportunism for the most. I mean, you also have to look at...
That's a polite way to say price gouging.
Yeah. So, I mean... You also have to realize that the builders are running a business and they have quarterly sales they have to meet.
Absolutely.
Once they've met those quarterly sales, that's where I think they start putting these people on these waiting lists. Because they can have a home that's ready to go, but they're putting them on a waiting list because they need next quarter to be as good as this quarter.
Yeah.
So that's where sometimes I think things get a little like, this home is ready to go. I mean, when I bought my home, I mean, I already said what builder it is, but when I bought my home, they wanted me to wait 45 days for closing. The home was done. Done. Like, I could have been able to move in the next day. Done. And they wanted a 45-day closing. Why? They're like, well, your lender. I was like, my lender can do it in 20.
Yeah, but a lot of it is, like you said, like when you was in retail, is them salespeople, what have they got to do? They've got to meet quotas. Mm-hmm. You know, they've got to sell so many houses in a subdivision and get cleared out by a particular time, and that really is the pressures that some of them sales consultants have.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in retail, I had certain goals I had to make, and if I made all 3, I got a big bonus at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that buy one, get one half off when you came in for one shoe, you buying one for half off. I know you only came in here to spend 100, but honey, you going to spend 150.
We going to put another box in your hand. Yes.
And that's what I think it is. That's the pressures of working for, you know, some corporations and such like. And James is, so with some of these lenders, when they help them with like upfront closing costs towards their closing to buy a new house, it sounds to me like that's part of the plan to push the value up. So then they get a higher value of the property. And it's sort of put in place perhaps with some of the lenders that they use. So, because that in itself is going to push the price up.
Well, giving closing costs doesn't necessarily give you more value.
But with some of these builders, what do? They say, okay, if you close with our in-house lender, we'll give you $10,000 towards closing costs.
Well, they're incentivizing that. That's an incentive for them to just keep it all under the one roof.
But indirectly, that $10,000 is basically going to go onto the price to push the price up, which basically gives them a higher appraisal, so they're pushing their values up over time.
Well, and it kind of hooks them. So someone that's going to be using, me, someone that's going to be an outside lender, and it's $10,000 on the table, I wouldn't walk away from $10,000. So I'm not going to expect the customer to walk away from $10,000. So it just kind of keeps them inside. I mean, the price of the house is going to be what the price is, regardless. But it's the $10,000 that's kind of the hook. But what many people don't realize is on that $10,000, they might be charging them an origination fee or something to even get that transaction. So a $300,000 house, that's $3,000 right there. They're getting charged out of that 10.
But the point I'm trying to make is, do they put it on to take it off? Do they put it on to basically, throw the hook in?
That's what I'm saying. The $10,000 may be there as an incentive, but if they charge you $3,000 as a fee, then it's not 10. It's really 7. And then there were other closing costs that might be in there, different little things that it can kind of slowly eat away at what you thought was a pretty big incentive.
So back to what you said, I thought it was interesting what you said, Dawn, when you said about, regulating new home builders. Do you think they should be regulated? Do you think there should be something out there?
You don't want my opinion.
There should be something that they answer to as far as ethics, because like their salespeople, like you said, they might have had a license in the past, they hung it up to work with this builder.
Well,
in the back of their head, they know that they're doing something wrong, but they're not going to get caught.
Well, all the people that have had the opportunity to go work for a builder that have left us, they've gone to work for builders, and every one of them have had to put their license inactive.
Yeah.
And they do that specifically because then they're not bound by the same ethics as what you are and I am and everything else. So what's your opinion on it then?
Oh, well, we as mortgage professionals, we feel like it's unbalanced because we personally can't steer a client or customer to a specific product or incentive or anyway, but builders can get away with incentivizing a buyer to use them over using us, even though we may have gotten them already perfectly qualified. And then there's some builders, even if they're qualified and they say they decide to go with me as an outside person, they make them apply with their internal lender anyways. So it's kind of one of those things. How can you get away with?
Sometimes you don't even realize that. Buyers don't realize that's what they're doing.
You're making somebody apply. One builder we were dealing with, they have like 3 choices for their internal people. They make them apply with all 3. So you got 3 credit hits on your report that they make you apply with, and they basically make these guys compete for the deal. Come on, that's ridiculous.
What I'm sort of confused at is, how would you do that? If you regulated it, what would be your reason for regulating it? You'd regulate it because you feel as if the client needs some sort of protection.
Well, it's
but at the same time, it's somebody's business.
It's the freedom to choose. If you're going to give me this incentive on this property, just give it to me because I qualify to get it.
It shouldn't be lender based.
It shouldn't be based on me using this specific person.
It should be like when you walk into a store, they don't look at you and be like, you get 30% off today. Oh, I don't like your shoes. You don't get anything off today. Like, you should have.
I guess you could do it that way. I was just trying to think how you could do it, because basically what you've got, I mean, it's somebody's business.
It is a business.
So, you see the builder side of it, but at the same time, I think you need to. So basically what you should do, if that $10,000 incentive there, they get the $10,000 incentive just for walking in the door at that particular time.
If you're going to give
just
it away.
like you would as if like Bed Bath & Beyond, you get 20% off.
Absolutely.
No,
that's the way it should be. I think that, so that's how you'd probably do it.
So my sister's moving to Utah, and they're going to get a new construction there. The builders and builder sales associate will not talk to a buyer walking through the door without their agent present.
Well, that's...
Really?
They have to have a realtor.
That's smart.
That's the way it should be.
That's smart.
They have to have a realtor, because he would walk in and say, yeah, I want to buy a house, and he goes, who's your realtor?
Yeah, because that, I think, is good, because then the clients have some sort of protection.
We know where that comes from, though. And what I think, I don't know for sure, that comes from the agents in that area getting together and getting on the same page and saying, this is what we need to lobby for.
Is that what it is? Do you know
I have no idea.
Be interesting
I just
to
know that
find
she
out.
told me that, and I was like, wait, you went to a builder and they said, where's your agent? She's like, yeah, they wouldn't talk to us about pricing, nothing, until we had our agent.
Kudos to the Utah Association of Realtors, if that even exists.
Right. And then how about in relation to James, for a new buyer coming in, first-time home buyer buying a new construction or whatever, I know, is there a particular better loan that you feel is better than, only you've got FHA?
You don't know that until you look at a customer's information.
And that's why I think a loan officer like yourself is so good, so you can go through and give people's options.
Yeah.
To find out what their personal circumstances are.
You can't just put everybody in the same thing, because it's every situation is going to be different. So you can't just say, okay, I'm going to get all these people in FHA.
Yeah, and one of the things I just want to see, on the podcast in the future, we've got coming in, one of the podcasts that we've got scheduled that we're going to be bringing up is basically in different scenarios, whether you use FHA or VA or such like, because I think it's so tough on people that are self-employed.
Right.
And as you've got more people now that are being moved out from W-2 employees and across to, self-employed status, then I really think more help needs to go to people that are self-employed. It's like I've got some investment properties, but my wife's W-2, and it's a lot easier for her to get a loan than what it is for myself as a self-employed individual. And that's where I think there needs to be help, is for different... I think there needs to be a better way of helping people qualify for the loan. I still think there needs to be more. I still think there needs to be a down payment. I still think there needs to be a down payment requirement. But I think that there needs to be more help for people, to buy that home that are self-employed, because some people that are self-employed, as a self-employed person, what do? You take as many write-offs as you can.
Well, see and that's the thing, right? Because I'm kind of on the fence with it, because we know self-employed people make money. That's
right.
How they exist. That's why they're in business. But they're not reporting it and paying, the taxes and the way that the rules are written for the loans.
That's the Mr. Trump coming out on me. So don't say I don't like the guy.
So that's we have to use what you're actually reporting. So with that being said, if someone doesn't report that money, then it's only fair to treat you like everybody else. Whatever you report, that's what we're going to use.
Right.
But there are programs for self-employed people. You just have to put more skin in the game as a self-employed person.
Yeah. It's tough. It really is. The amount of people that we've had, agents, in the office, they make a pretty good income, but when it comes to them buying a house, it's so difficult for them to do.
I have a question for Dawn. For the listings that you've had, do you see a difference, or even the ones that you've worked with making offers for? Have you seen a difference with how different offers are being treated depending on the type of financing that it is versus conventional, VA, FHA, so on and so forth? Whether people are accepting one or rejecting one more than the other.
It is, and I think a lot of it has to do with the agent or the seller not being truly educated, because they'll see a VA loan and automatically go, oh, no, we shouldn't. But why?
Right.
Tell me why you can't take that VA loan, just because they don't have anything down?
Yeah, but
I mean, if you can buy a house without putting nothing down, you're going to do it, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, and then they're worried about but the VA appraisal. I mean, the VA appraisal no longer sticks with the home. And doesn't it also easier than an FHA appraisal?
Well, it has its restrictions. The biggest the caveat with a VA appraisal is the timing, because there's not a lot of guys that are VA certified. So you're dealing with it's going to take a little longer. So we order those up front, right away, because you can't rush an appraiser anyway more than what they're going to give you, but it could take a little longer.
Yeah. So I think that it's just, I guess because in the past there's been so many issues with a VA that my one of my listings, we did end up taking the VA loan, but at first I had to tell them what it actually meant, and that don't worry, if it doesn't appraise and it doesn't go through, it's not going to stick with the house. And for some reason, everybody thinks that a VA appraisal is automatically going to come in lower than any other appraisal. And I don't know where that stems from, but it's they automatically think that. And then
I think there's
the consumer not educated on what.
But is it the consumer, or is it we had this conversation yesterday about the deal? Is it a case of the agents not staying up to date with the way that the different type of loans are changing, because it's sort of evolved.
And that's why is that not a requirement in our education? We have to take legal 1 and legal 2 and contracts ever so many years. Why isn't there an education
I totally
on
agree
the
with
type
that.
of mortgage and what it means?
Absolutely.
We don't have to become mortgage loan originators, but I mean, if I have to know about them in order to help my client
just a general
choose
education.
a lender, what?
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why we with a great loan officer like James, because that's one thing that we teach, but I do think it would help. We had an instance with one of the offers that one of our agents had yesterday, and it's basically a flipped property that somebody had flipped. And, for FHA, you've got to wait 90 days, correct, James?
For a flip, yeah.
For a flip, if in other words, somebody's buying the property, fixing it up, and basically flipping it, you've got to wait 90 days. Well, this particular seller didn't wait the 90 days. So the buyers come in, made an offer on the price, and the contract's dated within the 90 days without it expiring. So I said to James, well, whose fault's that? Because if the investor knows that it's a flip and they flipped a few, then they should know that with an FHA offer, you've got to wait 90 days.
See, I didn't know that. I just found that out today.
Oh, really? Hey,
Yeah,
today years old, right?
Yeah.
So
If you go a day without learning something new, you wasted a day.
You're definitely
that's
right.
the purpose
You're
of the
definitely
podcast, and that's what I thought was it. And I said to James, well, whose fault's that? Is it the listing agent? It is the seller, because everybody's sort of blaming everybody else, because you've got this buyer who's tried to do everything right, and then she's in a position where she could possibly lose her earnest money. And we have a zero tolerance policy, so nobody loses their earnest money with us. But the truth of the matter is, I said to James, in your opinion, James, whose is it? And he said, well, it's 6 of one, it's half of the other. It's not a case of any one individual.
Well, I think ultimately, you got to blame the licensed individuals. That's what it starts with for me, because we have to be better at doing a good job knowing what will fly.
And I take that.
It starts with that listing agent. A listing agent should have been aware, if they're going to accept an offer on a property that they're selling, that the financing that's accepted, there won't be an issue. So they need to vet that this property itself will meet whatever's going to be required for FHA or if it's VA or whatever the case is.
As Dawn said, in our Ethics 1, Ethics 2, and our continuing education,
that's not required in there. So, I've gone out and I've learned about VA loans, and that's how I know that the appraisal no longer sticks and things like that. But I haven't even seen classes on an FHA loan.
Yeah.
So, it's I should know that, but unless I know to ask, like, hey, how long does it take for a flip to qualify for an FHA?
Well, what I said,
how would I know?
Right. Well, what I said to James was the person doing the flipping, if they're an experienced flipper, flipping these properties, doing this, in my opinion, he should know.
That's an expensive
obviously,
mistake.
him, the flipper, and the listing agent, to me, should be working as a team. So they've got to take some responsibility. And it's just sort of difficult to but what you've basically got is a position where James is not the loan officer, but what you've got is everybody sort of blaming everybody else, and it's not helping the buyer. It's just making very frustrating. And then, like you said, every transaction is different, and you've always got things that are coming in that sort of just can make it different. No two transactions are ever the same. That's why you need an agent.
So you need to be aware of the waiting periods for times when you're dealing with government loans, VA and FHA for
absolutely
and such.
Yeah. So one last question, which I'm going to address again. So Dawn, how do you think the government should deal with the housing market?
Dealing with the housing market?
Yeah.
Well,
you are Mr. President Biden, whoever your president's going to be. You are now President Dawn. You're the first female president of the United States. How would you deal with the housing market? What would be your advice?
I think that's tough. I think one comes from you can't control the supply and demand. Like, you can't suddenly just say, okay, we don't have enough supply, so y'all can't buy houses. You can't do that.
And that's part of the problem. Even if you had a program to help first-time home buyers, there's no inventory for them to buy.
And a lot of this was caused by the Fed lowering the rate, right? So it gave people more purchase power. So does that mean you have to gradually raise the rate, which they are, in order to kind of stifle the demand?
What do you feel of that, James? What's your opinion as a loan officer with that? Do you think lowering the rate is the answer?
Lowering the rate, it can kind of pull back a little bit on it, but the Fed rate is not a direct effect on mortgage rates. It's not. It's the money that's lended to institutions overnight. That's what that Fed rate is. It can have an indirect effect on us. Excuse me, as more long-term rates, that is, but it's for short-term stuff is what that even is. So when people, hear about that, just so you know, it's not about the long-term stuff for us. We just got to make sure that we're doing a good job as professionals that educate our people. I think it's not enough education. I think everyone out there, of course, wants to win. They want a deal, and we just have to do better at informing people, and not just because you read a Google ad or watch, Susie Orman on show something, or Dave Ramsey or whatever, and everything. So that we got to take charge of being the individuals that know and educate our people.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I was just looking at, we've got some chats up there. Does anybody want to comment on that? We got Jeffrey Fawcett, one of the guys on the chat, and he said, seems like the bill creates a bias itself. Therefore, wouldn't everyone qualify?
Oh, he's talking about the down payment toward the Equity Home Act. Yeah, it's that's a whole ball of wax that we'll see what happens. I don't know that
it hasn't even been passed yet.
Nah, hadn't been passed. So.
Can you see it being passed? I think it needs to be ironed out. And
as is, no, I don't. Yeah, as is, I don't see it.
Sounds like they're monopolizing the buyer. I guess that's to the builders.
And what's your feeling on Jeff's comment where he says, sounds like monopolizing the buyer? How do you feel about that?
What's monopolizing the buyer?
I think he's talking about the builders.
Oh, well, that's what they want, buyers. Buyers are walking into their doors. If they could control everything, that's what they want.
We're all in it to make money. I
think the Utah model is the best one I've heard for a long time. I think that should be a rule. Perhaps that's how you get away from, what we spoke about with the builders. I personally think a lot of these builders, that what they're giving away, they're putting on the top anyway.
I mean, they're, as far as I understand from my sister says, they don't do incentives or anything like that. The price is the price. But you have somebody that's supposed to represent your interest.
Which I think is key.
In that.
I do think that's key.
So, I mean, that price is the price. I knew going in when I bought my home, price was the price. I tried till I was blue in the face. But that agent wouldn't even pick up the phone to ask questions. So, or he's not an agent, the sales representative.
And Luis Medina was basically saying that he agrees with James, the listing agent, with the FHA issue. Should know about the FHA loans. Otherwise, how are they representing their seller's best interest? Which is exactly the point you made.
I agree. We do need to know about that. But I think that the education for that needs to be more widely given. I mean, I can click on anything right now, and I guarantee you I'll see all these free classes for VA loan. I've never seen anything for an FHA loan.
Well, the deal is we don't want to teach you guys how to be loan officers. We need
to stay in our lane.
Yeah,
stay in our lane.
We need to at least know that.
We need to know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We need to know what qualifies for an FHA loan, what is different, if anything, for an appraisal. Like, what are the time frames for things? We need to know that ahead of time and not know it while we're experiencing it. Because, like Lewis said, how am I going to represent the best interest of my client, buyer or seller, if I don't know these things?
Yep.
That's not something they teach you in real estate school. They don't teach you any of that. They make you memorize the contract and say, go take a test.
And we've mentioned this before, but I really think the basic real estate exam, I think, needs to be an awful lot harder. And I think it needs to. I was thinking last night, when we did the podcast yesterday regarding we spoke about appraisers. They're a dying industry.
Yeah.
Because, they need a college degree and then they need all these hours. They've got to do a 3-year apprenticeship. And I really think perhaps that needs to be with real estate. Perhaps there needs to be some sort of apprenticeship.
I don't know so much that the test part, because the test, some people can pass the test event. The test should possibly be harder, because seems like they'll let anybody do it. But I think more than anything, there needs to be production minimums. Period. If you're going to basically consider yourself a real estate professional and you're in this business, you should be closing transactions, because with experience, you do learn, even if you don't learn it in the classroom. With experience and you're doing the transactions,
best way you learn is literally
getting out there and actually doing the work. You learn it. So if there was a minimum, if you haven't closed a transaction in 3-5 years, man, your license, you're out of here.
I agree with that. Go do your classes again. And I think there needs to be a minimum. I really do. I think that's a good idea. But I've seen people on different forums say that, but they always push it back to the broker, where whichever brokerage you go to needs to be responsible for that. Yeah, I think
and with the mentorship and with whether or not they can go out on their own and do things yet.
I agree with that, but then there's a conflict that comes in, because what happens is, and we've had this all the time, and we've let some agents go, because when you go through real estate school, what do they say? You're an independent contractor. You work for yourself. So what happens is the agents get this mentality where you can do what you want.
Well, they say a lot of things that don't actually
the truth
to apply to real life.
But the truth of the matter is, as the broker, if you don't like it, stick it. I'll go somewhere else, and it's just a click of a button. There's somewhere else. And that's the part that I totally, disagree. We've had agents that have decided to leave us, haven't even contacted us. They go click a button and they're
out of there, right?
And that's what I think is wrong. But I think what needs to happen is, I think the agents need to sign up for a mentorship. And like you said, I think even in that mentorship, if it's the broker's responsibility, okay, well then Trek need to help out by getting the agents to stick with it.
I mean,
even in that mentorship, you could put your production.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I joined Century 21 Olympian was what I saw the mentorship program as. Because honestly, when I first started this, I was like, I'm going to be in this cute little boutique brokerage, and I'm going to, do the Heights area and all these little uppity things, right?
All the stuff on HGTV, right?
All that stuff, And then I interviewed with a couple of the boutique brokerages, and then you came in and spoke at Champions, and I came and interviewed here, and I was like, I'm going to get more here. like as far as being able to grow. Because at those boutique brokerages, what happens? When I started looking at what the agents were doing, it wasn't the agents doing it. It was the broker. The broker did this, broker did that, broker did that. Oh, this person did a lease. And I was like, that broker's too busy to help me.
Well, but that's part of the problem. I come from a coaching background, so our philosophy is a little bit different. But what a lot of new agents don't understand is the way the business models are from some of different types of brokers. They are going into a competitive broker situation, and the way that the industry is designed is because we're responsible for every transaction, that with a click of a button, all them leads go to the broker. And there's some brokers, a lead comes in from Association of Realtors, Houston Association of Realtors, and that lead comes in, and even if it's your listing, Dawn's listing, they can click a button, and then that lead, that broker can go to anybody in that office. And that was part of the problem that we had when we was with another franchise, that as an owner of the business that's got all these fixed costs, and you've signed a 10-year franchise agreement, that as a business owner you're forced into a position where you've got to do that. So when that lead comes in, you're making a 20% referral or a 30% referral. From my coaching background, I thought it was immoral, and I never did that. And I struggled financially for the brokerage, so I wouldn't do that. And that's one of the reasons why I went through the Century 21, because that way I could be in a position where every listing that you have and every lead you have is yours. So you're generating the business and you're developing yourself, and it always comes back to leads, listings, leverage.
When I first started, though, I didn't even think about who was going to give me leads. I was thinking of who's going to teach me how to get the leads and how to get the business. And like those other brokers, like I said, they were too busy. In fact, some of them, I didn't even interview with the broker. I interviewed with an assistant.
Right. But
whenever I came here, you offered to I didn't have my license yet. I wasn't practicing real estate. But I was able to come and sit in your classes, and I was able to
we
learn more before I could even get my boots on the ground.
Right.
And that's what I wanted, was who's going to help me and teach me how to grow, not who's going to give me the most leads. Because you can give me all the leads you want. If I don't know how to work them, and I don't know what I'm doing out there with my boots on the ground, what does that do me? Nothing.
Yeah, but that's... the biggest worry from new agents coming in is, how do I generate leads and how do I generate business? That's normally a worry for them. And the other part that a lot of agents don't get is, I'm a big believer in learning on the job, but I believe in scripting and I believe on having a support system. So when they're out there working out there on the streets, that they've got a support system so they can call up and hopefully get me on the phone or get one of the mentors on the phone, so at least they have some sort of answer. And that's what you sort of said, and one of the reasons why what you said was 100% correct when you said, if I haven't got an answer, let me get back to you in 2 or 3 hours. Because no agent knows all the answers, regardless how much ego you've got. No broker knows all the answers. And there's sometimes where, as a coach, people will call me up. So Dawn Killian calls me up and says, okay, I've got a contract and this is what we've got. What should I do? Well, the first question I say to the agents is, well, what do you think you should do? And sometimes the agent gives me a better answer than what I was actually going to say, because they're just thinking in a more creative way and solving a problem more. And so I learn from my agents just as much as you learn from me. But that was my problem when I originally went to my first brokerage. The culture wasn't the right type of culture. It wasn't a learning culture. It wasn't a motivation culture in the office. And I didn't feel that I fitted into that culture. And then at the same time, that culture would work for some people, and it did, and it does, and it still does work for some people. But the truth of the matter was, my mentor that I worked for him, I had a contract that I needed to make an offer on, multiple offer situation on a Friday night, and he was a producing agent, and he didn't have time for me. And he turned around and said, oh, well, just come to the mentoring class on Tuesday and I'll answer your questions. So that was too late for me to put my offer in. And then when I put my offer in, because I didn't consult with the broker, they was annoyed. And that goes back to, Violet Gonzalez, she joined us from another broker. And I shouldn't have helped her. I shouldn't have given her advice, but I did. Then a couple of days later, she came join us. And then, she's with the company now for 9 years. And she closes a deal for $16 million. That gives me so much pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
To take her from that level. And she was with the broker for 2 years, never closed a deal. And, she called this one broker that she was with at the time. And, the broker turned around and said, all right, with my kids at the moment, call me back Monday and I'll answer your question. And what you said about that's a problem with the industry. A lot of brokers, because they need production, which is what you were saying, but because they're a top producing agent doesn't make them a good coach. And as you can tell by the signs on the wall, I like soccer, but the truth of the matter is I can't tell you how many top soccer players have decided they want to manage a team and they have never been able to continue, the success that they did do as a soccer player. So it's an interesting comment that you said, about why you chose us. And that's another reason I didn't like about my first broker. They wouldn't let me attend no training, no nothing until my license was active. And that's why, we let agents come in. If you want to come in, you can join the classes, and that's not a problem. Because then when you get your license and you become active and you go join HR, what happens? The poo hits the fan, does it not? Because you've got all these systems and you've got to learn these things and you've got clients that want to buy property and all of a sudden it's organised chaos.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not even organised, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going to those the classes and the mentorship program, it gave me an idea of how to apply the knowledge because people are using examples of what this transaction happened and how they handled it or how they should have handled it. And whereas just coming fresh out of taking my test, I had no idea.
Do you think what they taught you in real estate school was anything like it is on the streets?
I think on the streets, no. It does have value because you need to know your contracts and the ethics of it and all of that and the math because some people apparently can't figure out what 3% is, things like that. But as far as applying it, it doesn't because if you can't connect to your client,
the communication part, like you said,
you can't teach those things. Like you have to put in effort for communication. Like I'm sure James might get annoyed with me because he hears from me every day because I send him another email or something about the transaction or.
You don't get annoyed, do you, James?
No.
I've never known him get annoyed. He's never been annoyed at me.
No.
But I mean, my clients are going to hear from me every day. They might get an email from me on update from the day before or a new to-do list because the plan went off the tracks again. But they're going to get those every day. They're going to get a text message, however they prefer to communicate. They're going to hear from me every day.
Right.
And I've had people come to me that are like, I haven't heard from my agent in 5 days.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of agents do. As soon as it's closed, they get their check. You never hear from them again. Them aren't the good agents. They're just not.
I mean, I don't talk to them every day anymore. I'm sure they'd like a reprieve from hearing my squeaky little voice. But
I'm sure they appreciate when you call them up and say, congratulations on your birth of your new baby and stuff. I'm sure they appreciate it.
So it's...
Well, you're talking about during the transaction, though, right?
Yeah, during the transaction, you're going to get... That's why I like James, because I know he's going to communicate. Right. I'm not going to get the call from my client saying, I haven't heard from James in a week. I have no idea what's going on with my transaction. Right. Now, I might get a call from him and say, I sent him an email 3 hours ago and I haven't got a response yet. And I'm like, okay, well... give him a minute.
He's doing a podcast.
I know. I'm like, give him a minute. I was like, that doesn't mean he's not going to communicate with you. Right. So, I mean, that it just depends on what the people think their expectations should be. Right. But, I mean, it is about communication, and it's also about a connection on a professional level, too. So, I mean, I've had people that they were with somebody else, they talked to me, and they were like, you seem to know more and you tell us more. Right. It's because I educate my client. What I know isn't a secret.
Right.
Right.
And it shouldn't be. Like your client should know as much about their transaction of buying a home as you do.
Right.
If not more.
Well, talking about secrets, I want to just finish up with one last question to Dawn. And this is an issue in the industry at the moment, which is basically Airbnb investors on how they're basically purchasing properties and they're using them for Airbnb. And, you know, we do homeowners association. I know it's a big concern of some of the homeowners associations where they're trying to bring in new declarations, change the bylaws to stop that. And there are more buyers that are trying to buy houses for even lease properties so then they can lease them out on an Airbnb. And there's a lot of issues with that. I know you just got your first one, correct? And is that something you've just started or something you've been used to doing, or what's your experience with that?
So it's something I just started. I have a past client that came to me that they've been going back and forth in investing. And she called me and she was like, I want to do an Airbnb. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And she told me all these locations that she wanted. And I was like, now the HOAs will allow it. And she goes, well, did you have to tell me that? She's saying what I don't know. I just do it till I get caught. You know?
Sad.
So, I mean, but that's what a lot of these Airbnb investors are doing. Because if you're in say you're in a condo in the Galleria and there's no guards, there's no gate. The only people that are there to know if it's an Airbnb is the neighbor. How... You're gonna get some profit before you get caught.
Yeah, well, one of the properties that we do the HOA with, a homeowner called me about 7 days ago and said that one of the owners for one of the units basically has taken a contract for 6 months. I think he's going to Afghanistan actually or something, or he was going out the country for 6 months. And while he's there to help pay his bills, he's leasing it out to an Airbnb. And his brother's the one that's going to clean it and monitor it and do everything else. And at the moment, in them declarations, there's nothing to stop him doing that.
I mean, at the end of the day, the neighbors don't care until there's a problem. Like, if you have somebody renting an Airbnb that's clean, quiet, they don't care. But if you have somebody that rented your Airbnb that's going to leave cigarette butts everywhere,
right, has
loud music for the next 3 days, is a mess, make the whole place smell... That's when they complain.
Right, absolutely.
So it's, in all fairness, in Airbnbs, you have a lot more good leasers, or what are they called, hosts, than you do bad.
Right.
But it only takes one bad for you to get caught, because then they're like, all right, I'm done.
Do you think it's a part of the market that's going to increase, especially with COVID and everything else? Because I feel that's how it was before, pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. And then with COVID, it sort of stopped a little bit, the Airbnb thing. And now with COVID sort of getting under control and people, being vaccinated, do you think it'll increase again? I think it will.
I think it will. And my sister and I stayed in Airbnb when we went to the Keys. But this investor bought like an old 1960s hotel that had like 20 rooms. Well, maybe 50 rooms. Mm. And they just turned that whole thing into an Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
Instead of a hotel, it was an Airbnb. It was a cute little place, had a little pool right on the beach. I think that's going to be in the future where more Airbnbs are going to go to, because they are going to get caught more often with these, with the condos and the HOAs not allowing it. But they're going to be like these little fourplexes or places that don't have the HOAs.
I think the return on investment for Airbnb is a lot more than traditional real estate investing.
Oh, it is. It definitely is. And for us, where we were staying, it was cheaper to do that Airbnb than to get a hotel.
Right.
Because it's a big touristy place. Sometimes the Airbnb isn't always cheaper, but...
Well, that sounds like the perfect scenario, really, if you think about it. Cheaper than a hotel, but as an investor... better rate of return.
Absolutely.
So anyway, with that, I guess we'll. Oh yeah, Dawn. Let's talk about that.
So this was just about the Houston housing market and how it's expanded year over year. It talks about the supply and the demand. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I might be able to see better. Anyway, so if you scroll down a little bit, it talks about like February 2021, your percent year over year change, right there, up a little bit, yeah. So our closed sales are up 1.2%, but our active listings are down 37.9%. And that just kind of goes back to where I was saying you have way more people ready to buy, but the people are afraid to sell because they don't know where they're going to go.
16% is a big increase.
But there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I ran the numbers the other day just about the number of renters. Just if you just use Houston proper, you say just in the city, 5 million people, over 2 million renters.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the rentals. I mean, I'm trying to get somebody in a rental. There's multiple offers in every rental I go to, and a portion of that is people coming in from other areas, other states.
Sure.
And it's also, we had that huge freeze. People can't stay in their homes. They got to get a rental.
Right.
So, I mean, there's competition in rental market right now, too. It's no easier getting a rental as it is getting the house.
A very unique
Let's ask a general question, which would be interesting. James, out of all the numbers, which one do you think is the most interesting part of that equation?
To me?
Yeah.
Of course, what stands out is the red number, the months of supply. To me, from year over year, you went from where you had a positive number to where we're upside down, essentially, in as far as we have to get back to zero, basically. So we're behind the gun. That stands out a lot to me.
How about you, Dawn? Which do you think is the most interesting number on that?
The increase in average sales price, like going up 16% in 1 year. I mean, like we're gonna have where people can't purchase a home; they don't have the purchasing power. So if we go back to the incentive to purchase a home, that's all well and dandy, but can you get a $300,000 loan?
Perhaps that's what they should be helping people with is, a tax credit or whatever, rather than pay their taxes and they buy a house, maybe give them a tax credit against, their price.
I say you teach them to fish. If you keep giving them fish, they won't learn it. They got to get educated.
I tell you what I think is interesting more than anything else on all them numbers. Total active listings down 37.9%.
I mean, I've had several past clients call me wanting to know how much they can get there for their house that they purchased 2 years ago. And they're like, oh, it has gone up a little bit. Okay, all right. What would it take for me to get in house? And then they go, oh, wait. Yeah. No, I'm going to stick right here.
Yep. That's
the catch-22, isn't it? Really, I mean.
And this is just Houston you pulled, right?
Yes, this is just Houston.
But yeah.
Wow.
Think what it'd be like in some other cities. I mean, think what it'd be like in New York, San Francisco. Be interesting to get them numbers.
Well, I mean, you think about it. Over the last, typically you see an appreciation rate of about 3 to 4%, which is normal. 5 on a great year, but 16 is crazy.
I mean, devil's advocate, is it these people coming from California and New York that are causing this?
Possibly, because I had a lady come in. She said, "Man, these houses are so cheap. I can buy 2 of them."
Yeah.
Because they're selling over there and they're coming over here.
I mean, I'm talking to an investor that wants to spend $1 million. By the way, I got it on Property Time, free leads. She's planning on investing nearly $1 million in different homes that she wants to buy here for rentals. And she's doing it here in Texas, but she's going to stay there in California because it's cheaper for her to buy the investment properties and she gets a better return rate here. Right. So that investment property that she's buying, because she can pay cash for it, our Houston buyers can't compete with her.
Right. And recently, the last 3 months, we've done an awful lot of 1031 property exchange, which is basically investors from other states taking a deferred tax program and they're buying homes, multiple homes, and basically moving their investments. I mean, we do property management, and because they're not here, we manage the properties for them. And it's just amazing to see the number of people that we've had coming in from, you mentioned New York, California. We've had some coming in from Florida.
They're coming from all over Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is where
And
it's
regardless
at.
whether it's oil or electric, I think Houston will always be the energy capital of the world. Personally,
Well, it's not just Houston. I mean, you've got all these businesses that went into Austin and Dallas.
Right.
I think
that
Texas
they're
in general, yeah.
Yeah, because our taxes are better.
Yeah, Tesla moved to Austin. I mean, HP moved to Houston, which
Amazon just keeps popping up everywhere. They got.
There's one at 288 in Beltway.
Oh yeah, that was right next to the office. There's another one on Fort Bend Parkway. I don't think it's open yet, but
I'm waiting for the day where I order something and in the next morning I see all these drones come up and then they just fly out and gets dropped off on my front door. I can watch
It'll happen. What? There you
Good
go.
old Jeff.
Don't hate on him because you didn't think about it first.
I can't hate on him. All I can do is congratulate. That's it. I got a question.
Disco Joe.
Hello, I've just recently dropped out of college in California, Houston State for 19 years.
Oh no!
Is your money green, Joe? If your money is green, your age doesn't matter. You're of age, so
are you talking about purchasing, or are you talking about becoming a real estate agent? Because I mean, you're 18 years old, you can hit the ground running. I mean, there's people that have. I mean, I follow a few people on YouTube. Graham is one of them. He dropped out of college and he house hacked and got his real estate license, and he's a millionaire. Just moved out of California because he couldn't afford it, and he wanted to keep some of his money, so he went to Arizona.
Well,
to
Disco Joe, just to let Disco Joe know, I'm also a college dropout, so I don't think there's anything at all stopping, you coming in. I think it's a case of how you address it and how you apply it.
Yeah, if he wants to get into the business, I mean, I don't know if you got,
don't quite know if he's talking about,
becoming
as a real estate agent
or
becoming, buying a house. But the truth of the matter is, I would honestly say, from my point of view, it was too late for me. I really think I would have loved to have gone into this business when I was 21.
Well, Joe,
I would have rather got straight into this business when I'd just done Olympics. And I was doing, real estate as in a real estate. I was teaching ice skating. I wish I would have got into real estate at the same time. From an investment standpoint, one time I owned 83 condos and I sold them to put into the business for the brokerage. But you know what?
So if he's talking about getting into real estate, how can he contact you if he's interested in doing it?
If he's interested, he's just got to look us up. You can find us online, Joe. Give me a call, but you're more than welcome at C21 Olympian TX. You're more than welcome to call me directly if you want to at 713-550-0096. And you're more than welcome to do that, or you can find us online or contact one of our offices and they'll help you, get in contact. Contact me on Facebook if you need to. But love to help you. But if you're coming from California, I'm sure you know a lot of people from California. If you want to get into real estate, and people from California, and get them to invest in real estate, that's your first opportunity. If he wants to be a real estate agent, get him into the Houston market. I mean, but I would honestly say it's never ever too late to get into real estate. What do you think?
No, I agree. It's never. I mean, I was in my 30s when I got into real estate, so
just get yourself a good broker that supports you. I'm not just saying that to push us, but that's, I think,
interview multiple, decide what's important for you.
Right.
Get yourself into a good culture. I'll put culture into everything. Anyway, all right, James. How do they contact you?
Legal Blones on all social media platforms. Legal Blones, reach out to me. If you need anything from me, I am here to help as your mortgage professional.
And Miss Dawn?
You can find me at Sold by Killian, Killian, not to be confused with the barbecue franchise.
My old buddy Ronnie.
Yeah. Yep. And at Sold by Killian, all social media platforms. Email is dawn@soldbykillian, where you can find me.
And anybody interested in buying or selling, go to our property desk at 832-553-8300. If you're looking at investing, buying, selling, property management, or even you need somebody to manage your local HOA, we'd love to hear from you. That's 832-553-8300.
Oh, yeah. If you didn't hear or can't remember what we told you, all of our contact information for social media will be down in the description. So just look out for it. Just reach out to us on there.
All right, guys.
All right.
Anyway, same time, same channel, next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. And actually, we've got Sinead and Michael coming in to talk
Next
us
week?
about new home construction.
Okay, that'll be a good one. That'll be a
That'd
good
be
one.
a different.
good one.
That'd be pretty cool. All right, guys. Have a good week. Stay successful and live
Take
the
care.
dream. We look forward to seeing you all next week.
Bye.